Welcome to the Hope on the Hard Road podcast, where you and your family can find community, find encouragement, and find hope for the road ahead. Speak encouraging words to one another. Build up hope so that you will all be together in this. 1 Thessalonians 5:11. Hey guys, before we get started today, we want to tell you about our date night event coming up on February 17th. This is a fun-filled night for caregiving couples to relax and reconnect. Just head on over to our website at hopeonthehardroad.org or go to the link on our social media at Hope on the Hard Road to sign up. Oh, and speaking of social media, don't forget to follow our social media to get all the latest and subscribe to our podcast so you never miss an episode filled with expert insights and heartfelt family stories. Hope to see you there.
Welcome to part 1 of 2 episodes on marriage in our family series. Today we are talking about taking care of yourself. These episodes come from a recording of our Marriage in the Midst presentation at last year's date night. For more on this presentation, head over to our store at hopeonthehardroad.org, where you can purchase the entire event video for just $5 today. Let's listen in as we join today's podcast.
So we just wanted to start off, that recognizing that when you go into marriage, you're all full of hope, expectations, really a lot of enthusiasm, probably a lot of naive anticipation. But, as life starts to happen, even before kids, you start realizing, I realized I was pretty selfish right away, but you learn a lot of things.
So did I.
So, hard circumstances come along too, and they really start forging away, and you start to figure out, how are we doing this?
That's right. And then, along comes real life, right? And along comes special needs into all of our stories, right? So we just want to talk to you guys a little bit about that. So
yeah, and really want to make sure that, looking at this, it's not just like it's hard, but there's hope in it, and looking at, what can we hang on to? There was Jesus. Isn't that what was just sung, something really pivotal there? But, our hope is that we would just be an encouragement to you. We're with you in this. It's not we're up here telling you how to do life. We're living this and struggling all the time and being real. So the first thing we really wanted to talk about is taking care of yourself, self-care and soul care. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we called it self-care and soul care. You guys may have heard that term before, but, you all hear self-care all the time, right? But as Christians, we also want to be mindful of our soul and our spirit. And so we wanted to talk a little bit about that. But first,
to kind of
a little side note on the factor of stress, again, that we all experience. And so stresses can be several things. They can...
Yeah, just daily, weekly responsibilities in all kinds of facets. You have your family, you have work, you have school, you have therapies, and this is an exhausted list, so that we're talking about.
Mm-hmm, yeah, so we're starting off with external stresses. And again, this is not an exhaustive list. This is, you guys have your own examples, but, we all have these annual responsibilities of school and IEPs and, regional center and Medi-Cal and all these things that we update every year, right? And then there's medical needs and doctor's appointments, and sometimes there's fighting with the insurance coverage for those things. And then there are people in our life that don't understand what's going on with our family, right?
And sometimes they have the same last name as us, and it's, which makes it even more challenging. So, and then spousal differences. You go into marriage, have certain expectations, especially expectations with children, and then you have a special needs kid, and knowing they're not going to necessarily meet all those expectations, and coming together and forming teamwork with all this. It's a journey.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, then there's special needs, your child with special needs versus all of the other siblings that you might be caring for as well, right? And so that strain and stress between, providing for each of those. So those are kind of those external stresses that you might exhibit or, deal with basically, right?
And of course, there's that other category. So just name it. What's the stress in your life right now that you're dealing with? I mean, if it's not on that list, and it may include that list, certainly we have plenty of others this week too, didn't we? So then you look at it after that. There's internal stresses that you're looking at too. We just mentioned something about spousal differences, expectations versus reality. Like, when you have a special needs child, you might have this ideal dream of what's going to take place, and then all of a sudden it's like things change. They may not hit certain milestones and things like that.
Yeah. And then, there's just the ability to balance everything, right? I mean, we only have so much energy and time and resources and such, right? So that's pretty stressful. An emotional state, we have the ups and downs of that, our own emotional ups and downs, and then couple that with your spouses and of course the kids that you're taking
Well, and if your
care of.
house is anything like ours, we can't have emotional states when we're in front of our own children. So we kind of they feed off the energy in the room and the fears and everything else with it. So it really adds compounds to the stress. Like, okay, we'll hold this, but you're real people.
Totally.
It can't always happen. Yeah.
Yeah. Table it for later, right? That's really hard to do. And then there's your view of God. Personally, this was an area I struggled in. That's why those two songs really speak to me, because those were ones that God literally just reached out and grabbed a hold of me and said, I am here. I do love you. There's no truth in knowing, thinking that God doesn't love us because we're in hard circumstances. He promises we're going to go through tough stuff. But just God loves us. And sometimes we fall into that category of believing that I did all the things right. Why is this coming out bad? What is going on here? And it's such a struggle, and it can cause you to have a crisis in faith. And that's certainly my story. So, that category of, who is God? Who is God to me? Who is God? And we encourage you to press into that. Press into it.
Yeah, and so one of the things is realizing there's a natural grief that takes place. There's a natural cycle of going up and down through all these different things that are taking place. You see up here, we have a term, you may have heard the grief cycle, but there's also this thing called the Kubler-Ross change curve.
Hard to say.
So in looking at it, and all of us experience these things in different ways and at different times, but going through, there's always the initial shock, okay, what's going on with this? And usually with diagnosis, but that's not the only time. It can come several times throughout it. Denial, that's a real common way of dealing with it. You just don't want to ignore it, or, it's normal. And then frustration, you start to come with the reality of some of the things that you're dealing with. It's a challenge. And finally, you kind of hit a low point of depression where, there's that song, Only Jesus, right? That kind of, if you look at this as kind of a curve where you're also in your spiritual journey, hitting a low point there, and now God starts bringing you out on what he's trying to teach you through it. Experiment, you're starting to figure out what are we going to do, what types of things. I know we made a lot of family changes going through this type of thing and seeing how we would do that. Years ago I was coaching. I don't do that anymore because our family demands needed us to be together and work as a team. And so there's just sacrifices that take place with this as you start making decisions to work through it. And then finally, integration. You start coming up to what is our new normal, basically, as you're working through it.
Yeah, and a lot of times you guys have heard of the grief cycle, right? But we thought this was a really good one because it's the change curve. So, kind of think of curveball too, right? So every time there's a new change, you have to readjust. And you may not go through every one of these cycles or these, points to it, right? And it might be in different orders even. But we found it's very true that it comes up again and again. And so, our daughter turned 16 and all of her friends were getting driver's license and she was not. Now she's 18, turning 19. We had to go through all of the adult, and we did conservatorship in her case. And, just facing, and then now this is a beautiful story. We got to go to Night to Shine last weekend with her, and it was amazing. Amazing. Want you guys to each do it next year. It was amazing. And daddy got to dance with daughter, which is something we know isn't going to happen at a wedding, right? So for her, in her case. And so with each one of those milestones, that's, you might go through it again, you might hit, and I think the key is to not be surprised by it. I was surprised by it. It's why I ended up depressed at one point and in a crisis. To not be surprised by it and to know this is legit. This happens, and it happens to all of us. And it may happen to your spouse at one point and then you later, or vice versa. But to have that grace with each other and understanding and just hang with it. Keep pressing in.
And I would say, too, being aware of this, like there's these times you get irritable and you don't even know why it is. And it's this happening, and we're only talking about our circumstances, but compound, outside families and other stresses that make this all the more, accelerated, if you would. So.
Exactly. Next, we're just talking again, coming back to self-care and soul care. And how important that is for us. I think the big thing for us, and I'm going to speak to the moms in the room, we often think it's selfish. We can't. Like, we have too many things. Our kids have too many needs. Like, that's selfish to go and have a spa day with a girlfriend. But the truth is, if you don't take care of yourself, you're not operating from a strong place. And then your kids are going to suffer, and definitely your marriage is going to suffer. And so it's really important. It's not selfish. It is necessary. And you guys are doing it tonight. This is one of those things, coming here and investing in your marriages. So.
Well, and just as an example, some of you might have been flying recently or something like that. Of course, with autism, it's not exactly the easiest thing to go and fly. But, they say, as a parent, always put on your oxygen mask first, because if your oxygen mask is on, then you'll be able to take care of your kid. If you can't breathe, you're not going to be much use to your child. So taking care of yourself and, giving a real-life example for this. And, of course, my wife was a lifeguard back in the day.
So all through high school and college, I lifeguarded, and
still is.
We can't go to a beach without me being on guard. But yeah, one of the things I remember very, very vividly was they kind of threw us in the deep end, and then they were like, "Look, if you are drowning as a lifeguard, you're no use to anybody. So you better make sure that you don't get put in that position, right?" So you guys get the picture. You take care of yourselves first. It's important. It's not selfish.
So some examples of self-care and soul care, looking through this. First off, maintain soul care. Worship, man, that's a fantastic way. Taking it to God, lean in, talk honestly in prayer. I know I do journaling, and that helps a lot. But, you got to figure out what works for you, talk, through with God and so forth like that. And, remember in Scripture, of course, that you will definitely not go wrong with doing that. I know some of your low points that really, brought you through is remembering what God had to say.
Yeah, the truth of what God says, of who He says He is, and who He says He is to us, and how He will be with us in the hard stuff is really important. It's really important.
Other things, maintaining self-care, taking a break, when's that happen? I don't know, but you almost have to schedule it. Please, the kids agree with it?
You did. You scheduled it tonight.
Here it
Good
is,
job.
yeah. Take a bath, read a book, see a movie, get out, listen to a podcast. Creativity is a great thing too. I know that is something. Exercise, we try to do that. Get out in nature and exercise. Get one of those strollers like we have. Oh my goodness, those things are amazing.
It's been fabulous. We've been able to push Abbey in this beautiful stroller. And again, she's 18, she's petite, but it works. And we get to go on hikes and then when she's out in nature, we're out in nature, it's all good.
Well, and then also, what you're doing right here, connect with others. Maybe people at work, but maybe it's not people at work. Maybe it's, meeting with moms together is some of the things we're doing. Dads together, people that get it is really a big thing. Talk to old people. Yeah, no.
That too.
Talk to an old friend, catch up. Even, one of the things is the beauty of it is talking on the phone is not always the easiest thing, I know, with the kids, but texting, just trying to connect with people, doing that. Whatever you can find ways to do it, because it is important. You don't want to feel like you're isolated while you're doing this.
Yeah. I have a friend here tonight actually helping and she and I grew up together. She's 6 months older than me, so I've known her since I was baby. And I go and I meet her every quarter at least, and we go do girl stuff, and she knows me. She knows me, and that's really big. So I would encourage that for sure. And yes, talking to old people, of which we are now in that category. It's a good thing. It's a good thing. It's a good thing to get perspective. You know, no joke. It's a good thing to get perspective from somebody who's been through life. And again, that is something that we're going to be doing later on in the night. Is we're going to have a panel of couples who've been through different journeys, and they're at different stages, and so that'll be really helpful to hear from them.
Definitely a lot of perspective. Well, in this one too, see a counselor. You know, so often you think going to a counselor is like, oh, something must be wrong. And the reality is we're under a lot of stress. And if you go to a counselor as a married couple who both are willing and wanting to, it's amazing how much that can do. We've been several times. And I mean, we have an amazing counselor that she goes to now. And it's amazing how much progress you can make and get over things and work into taking next steps to just build your friendship under all these circumstances, but find ways to really, kindle the love for each other. So highly recommend it,
Yeah, and I'd add to that, when we started going to counseling, I didn't grow up that way. And so it was like, I don't know about this. True story. We walked in, and it was about me. I needed to be there. And Eric says, "We're here about my wife." Well, soon enough, it became about our marriage, about our sibling we were raising, about our family. It was a wonderful, wonderful experience. And we go back to it every once in a while when we need a tune-up. We need some outside help or perspective or just a listening ear, because sometimes our friends don't get it, even friends that have been there for us. And so there's no stigma attached to counseling, really, you guys. It's such a beautiful thing that God has created others to be a good listening ear. And so there's lots of options. You can go to church, like here at Emmanuel Faith, they have, for free counseling. Sometimes they will, work something out with you. There's Christian counselors in the community. I know it's hard to find right now. The resources are few and far between right now. We do know that. But it's worth the search, and churches are available to that too. So,
yeah, definitely.
And we're here as well. We have resources.
Well, in this last one, we always say a good date involves laughter. I mean, if we can get out and laugh, and we were out a couple weeks ago, I think, and we're just cracking up with each other, and it's like, that doesn't happen all the time. And just the feeling to be able to, you're under the stress, so to actually free your mind and be laughing at a lot of times yourself, it's really a good thing in terms of, we think that's a huge quality of a good date.
Yeah, and Eric and I are about to celebrate 25 years of marriage this summer. So we were college sweethearts. Thanks. And there's a lot to laugh about. There's a lot to laugh about. A lot of old stories, and a lot of just laughing at ourselves, like you said. It's a good thing. It's a good thing.
So we love this verse. A cheerful heart is good medicine, but a crushed spirit dries up the bones. Proverbs have always such good wisdom, but just having a cheerful heart goes a long way in terms of working through life.
So, summary: when you take care of yourself, you can then operate from that better place of strength, and you will be far more effective at doing the things you need to do for your child and anyone else in your life, including your spouse. So definitely pay attention to that for sure.
And look for ways that you can help each other. Because, sometimes that's what it takes is, sacrifice one for the other in order to see it. So we have a question for you guys. We want this to kind of be a time to reflect to and not just hear from us. But what is one thing you can each do for self-care and soul care? So go ahead and take a moment, talk to your spouse and be able to reflect on that, because I think it'd be valuable.
Thanks for joining us for part 1 of Marriage in the Midst. Join us back here next time as we do part 2. In the meantime, don't forget to check out the store on our website, where you can purchase the entire event video from last year's date night. See you here next time.
resources and contact information for today's podcast will be included in the show notes. If you enjoyed this podcast, please share us with others and be sure to follow us so you won't miss an episode. And we'd love to hear from you, so please leave us a comment or rating and connect with us on social media or on our website at hopeonthehardroad.org.